Okay, it's 3 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. It's a meeting of the Ojai Valley Groundwater Management Agency at 3 o'clock on the 30th of July. Call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Here.
Director Finch?
Here.
Director Weaver?
Here.
Chair Hages?
Here. Okay, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, director comments. Mike?
Nothing for,
Bob?
nothing for the district.
Jim?
We did not meet, but unfortunately, we lost one of our members in Al West, who
Yes.
was on board for a long time. A very great man.
Okay, I don't have anything from Casitas. Manager comments?
Good afternoon. We are making progress on the 5-year periodic evaluation of the groundwater sustainability plan. Next month, I hope to have DUDEC make a presentation on the update to the hydrogeologic model. I'm going to be working on the draft budget for next year because it's almost that time. So in August, I'll present a draft to you. The city of Ojai did do their first reading or introduce the ordinance to suspend the well ordinance requiring approval from the city of Ojai. So that was done on July 14th. The second reading will be August 11th, and then 30 days after that, it will go into effect. So anyone who wants to drill a well within the city of Ojai boundaries will not also have to get approval from them, only from OBGMA.
Good.
But they're gonna review it every 2 years to see if they still wanna keep it suspended. So once that takes effect, we will move forward with the monitoring wells that we plan to install within the city limits. I also, if you don't know already, wanted to let you know that I plan to transition out of this role in the next few months, and I'm working on finding my replacement. So I appreciate all of your support in working on this. In this role, it's been very enlightening and informative, and I appreciate it. But my role at Casitas, I need to kind of focus on. There's a lot of big projects underway right now. So I'm gonna meet with Richard and another candidate in a couple weeks and see if that works out and find the right person for you guys. I'm not gonna leave you hanging.
Good.
Okay?
Thank you for what you've done.
Of course. And that's all I have.
Yeah, we appreciate what you've done, Julia. We're gonna miss you greatly.
I'll still be around.
I know that. Julia's managing a $40+ million project out on the Rincon to hook us up to imported water, so it's gonna keep her busy for a while.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan, basin status report.
Thank you, Chair Hages. Today's presentation for the basin conditions of July 2026, I'm calling it Back to the Basics. It's always fun to go back to the basics every now and again, especially when it's peaking summertime and heat is up and water levels are dropping like flies. Especially after all the rain has fallen for the most part. 53.11 on the ridge top, 27.89 inches on the valley floor, well above average for both, but you wouldn't know it half the time by looking around how dry things are. In the basin, at the Key Well, yesterday we measured 91.53 feet to water. That's about 88% capacity, or 70,400 acre feet, almost to the nadir we experienced in fall 2023, which was one of the wettest years. And if we get some 12, 13 feet deeper than that, we're still in pretty good shape based on the amount of precipitation and response to the of the water levels in the basin to this year's rain. the surface water side, as of yesterday, a lot of dry creeks entering the alluvium of the Ojai Basin. Really, the only measurable flow we saw was at Senior Canyon at the Ladera Bridge of 0.39 CFS. It's relatively small. If you want to see what that volume of water or that flow looks like, take a trip up there, because it's pretty close to that half CFS that seems to be on top of mind. Whereas outflow right now is about 6.29 CFS on the main stem of the San Antonio Creek as it exits the basin. Out of the Fox drain is less than 1/10 of a CFS. The total inflow 0.39, total outflow 6.35. Here's what that looks like. We'll probably see pictures like this for the next few months. Reeves Creek, Thatcher Creek, there's that flow under Ladera Road Bridge at almost a half CFS. Gridley's dry. The confluence of Gridley and Senior Canyon dry, where San Antonio Creek has its initiation point on the maps at least. At Fox Creek, it's doing this, trickling out, little less than 1/10 of a CFS there. And the main stem, you can see how much algae is blooming there with that 6.29 CFS outflow. Down further outside of the OBGMA jurisdiction, we measured 5.89 CFS, so pretty close to the same amount that's flowing on San Antonio Creek down near the confluence. This is at Old Creek Road Bridge yesterday. Wanted to go back to the basics. One of the things we're working on in concert with DUDEC is the update of the groundwater sustainability plan. And one of the comments we received from the DWR, among a handful, were speaking to the cross sections that we generated and put in the GSP. Within the GSP, if you recall, and I'll have a refresher here in a couple slides, we effectively took the model layers and presented them as geologic cross sections, which one of the things we like to say is that hydrogeology is not modeling and modeling is not hydrogeology. So when we put a geologic cross section in a report like the GSP and call it a geologic cross section, it's a bit of a misnomer, and one must read the fine print to understand that it is not a representation of the sand and clay strata that are so important in this basin, but rather the model layers. So we'll talk about that. But when I talk about that, I like to go back to the basics and some of the earliest cross sections that we had around here. This is from 1933. That little QT section right there is all that the basin was defined as nearly 100 years ago. And it's interesting because it's just shown as a sandbox, a little thin veneer of sand, QT, alluvium, undifferentiated, no silt, no sand, no clay, no gravel, just QT. And while it is cute, it's overlying something they had a lot more information on back then, which was the bedrock and the Matilaha Formation and the Temblor, as it was called at the time, TSP, Sespe Formation, and then Vaqueros, Rincon, Monterey, and Pico. All of those formations were well identified by petroleum geologists. Water was merely an afterthought when they put this section together. If we go fast forward 20 years to 1953, we get a little bit more definition in our sandbox, but it's still shown as a sandbox, just recent and Pleistocene deposits. At least it's not all lumped into Quaternary terrace deposits, and it actually shows the location of a handful of wells, some of which are still in operation today. Undifferentiated tertiary formations below, but a relatively simple concave basin, sandstone on either side, sand in the middle. By 1992, for the OBGMA, Stahl, Gardner, and Dunn presented this cross-section, and they actually put 2 E-logs on this section, and some rough lithologic logs on a handful of wells. They call out the effective base of fresh water, but the lines you see on that cross-section are just water levels. They're not strata that are correlated. Although at first glance, one might think, oh, it looks like there's just nice, even, parallel strata in this basin. It's continuous, left to right and center. Those are water levels, but shown on this cross-section. Fast forward another 20 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, it all blends together now. This is from my master's thesis in 2005, where we hanged, in this case, on this section, 5 geophysical logs on this section, and differentiated bedrock, which is the sespi at the bottom, and then the whites are the aquifers, the aquatards are the clay strata shown in green. And this is something that, you know, we've stood behind for quite a while and have used this cross-section and more recent generations of it in support of the modeling efforts and so forth. This is where those cross-sections line were in that thesis. You were looking at actually B to C in the preceding slide. A to E being west to east, and then D to F being on the eastern side of the basin. And of course the transmissivity that came from some of the aquifer testing. When we put the groundwater model development together in 2010, 11, etc., we differentiated those layers into 11 units. And these are model layers. You'll notice they're not discontinuous, they're all laterally continuous throughout this portion of the basin in the A to D line. And they have a couple of wells that are shown on the section as far as location goes, each of which had an E-log. Now, there's no differentiation really between what is permeability and porosity here, because in a groundwater model, one can have a single layer that has multiple parameters like that. For example, that layer 1, while it just looks like it's all the same, can have a very high conductivity on the upstream side to the right, and a very low conductivity on the downstream side because it's discretized into cells vertically that separate each layer. Sort of like the bricks in that chimney, that fireplace. You see all of those little squares. It's interesting to think about that as a groundwater model, but you see that some are thicker, some are thinner, and they all have different properties. So the properties that you would give or assign to each in a groundwater model can be high conductivity there in the blocks on the left and low conductivity on the right. Right representing clay where conductivity is low, sands and gravels having a higher transmissivity or hydraulic conductivity. So herein lies the issue. Within the GSP, we set 3 cross-section lines, one effectively horizontal in this map, east to west, throughout the center long axis of the basin. We had B to B prime, the due north-south, that basically is along McNell Road, all the way up to Senior Canyon. And then the diagonal line basically follows along San Antonio Creek. And of course, we've learned a lot about the basin since 1933, and frankly, even since yesterday. That's the nature of this basin. We're always learning, we're always testing hypotheses, and we're always trying to update our information. So the DWR, in their comments, assigned us the improvement of our cross-sections that we showed in the GSP. So here's that A to A prime. This is basically the angled one. And the way that it shows, we really didn't differentiate the uppermost aquifers. And that's important because at this scale, that's 150 feet of formation that looks almost identical in this section. While there's bedrock clearly on the upper right-hand side where the topography is shown, and we know very much about the clay strata that form the confining system of the production aquifers and the perching system of the southwest uppermost saturated zone. But when you look at this cross-section and you look at 100 GSPs and you're the DWR, you're gonna make a comment like, hey, let's fix that. And that's what we're doing. Here's another one of those sections from that GSP, and again, has the same issue. Layers 1 and 2 are shown as aquifer, but really are not differentiated, and they're clearly different formations. And the same thing for the southwest and northeast angled cross-section that goes along San Antonio Creek. So we're adding a lot more information to that. Where do we get that information? All right, modern e-logs. One of the things that is at our disposal are another 40 more e-logs, monitoring well logs, et cetera, since the most recent generation of cross-sections, since the 2011 or so that went into the groundwater model development. Now, when we look at it from the perspective of production aquifers and bedrock, an e-log is very useful. That's what they're designed for. They were designed literally 100 years ago in Pechelbron, France, by the Schlumberger brothers. You may have heard of Schlumberger as an oil company, but they generated this fascinating phenomenon of creating an electrical charge at a cathode and anode on a wire that goes thousands of feet underground and measures the electrical field based on its resistivity to measure the geophysical properties of aquifers, oil, sand, gravel, clay, salt water. Each has a different geophysical signature. And what's important about that is that that really hasn't changed in the 100 years of using these e-logs. So they're very useful for oil exploration, identifications of salt water, thicknesses of aquifers in this case. And the e-log you're looking at is from Sol Park. It's a 2010 e-log, and it's a really good one in that you see what I interpret as I sit here today as some pretty poor quality water at depth. The x-axis scale here is relative to its the geophysical properties, but vertically you have 50. Each of those lines is about 50, each of the markers 50 feet. So 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 450, 500 feet deep, as shown on this. It goes a little bit deeper, but the poor quality aquifers are at depth in that 450 to 500 foot zone. And then you have where that resistivity curve is off to the right, sands and gravels, and where it's off to the left, you tend to have clays. So as you get further up the stratigraphy here, by the time you're at 200 feet, you're really at the top of the production zone here in that what is about a 35-foot thick sand layer that, if you can see this cursor, is this zone right here. So that's really the shallowest production aquifer there at Sol Park. In this well happens to be on the northeastern side of the course. Of course, the geology can look a little bit different on the other side of a relatively large golf course, but for the purposes of this demonstration, the key is to identify that aquifer and correlate it to others of the same lithology, quality, pressure, etc. within the basin. Right above that, right at 200 feet, you start to see that resistivity curve kick to the left. You see a gamma ray kick to the right, not something they had in Pechelbon, France in 1928, but nevertheless, it's a tool we've added to this. But this is a very, very thick, very dry clay. Right, just about 130 to 150, 145 feet is a relatively thin sand, something that correlates to what we call the intermediate shallow aquifer in the South Fulton Street depth discrete monitoring well. And then another clay that goes up here. One of the drawbacks of using any e-logs to draft a cross-section where we're looking at shallow perched aquifers and clays, which is so critically important in so many ways here, but really to address the DWR's comments to the GSP, is that you need a drilling fluid in a borehole to create an e-log so that it's conductive enough to create the sphere of electrical field. Now, if the borehole fluid's only 40 feet and the top part of the tool is out of that borehole fluid, this curve kicks far over to the right, as shown here, because air is infinitely resistive, and that's what you're measuring, compared to the water or the rocks. So you've lost the medium. The single point resistance is still present. The gamma ray log is present, but it's not as accurate. So this requires other tools in the toolbox, namely the soil samples or aquifer samples or clay samples and a geologist's log to be able to really interpret that. And with those other tools, we can then correlate to where the perch system is, requiring the interpretation to complete the cross sections that actually show where that perch system is. In this case, it's right there, at about 20 to 30 feet below ground surface, outside of the sphere of influence in the resistivity curve, which was the basis for so many of the previous cross sections. I know it's a lot. It's a lot to say. It's pretty complicated and complex, but it's really our task this month. When we go to an even more recent well, this is from May of this year, we have samples of the cuttings at every 5 feet and identified the perch system here from 25 to 35 feet below ground surface. And then the same condition happens in the E-log for this particular well, and then we identify it as being right there based on both the E-log and the hand cuttings, and now we can correlate that gamma ray curve and SP curve, the curves off to the left that are not resistivity based, to other logs of similar vintage throughout the basin. And of course, importantly, OBGMA Ordinance 12 dictates that we've got to seal that off, and in this particular well, the seal went down 50 feet, which completely sealed off the perch system. Now, what do we do about that upper 50 feet where we either have conductor casings or no cuttings or no logs? Here's where we go back to basics again. That means environmental monitoring wells, drilled by a number of different drillers for a number of different reasons, logged by a number of different geologists, many with very limited experience. I know because I was one of them once upon a time. My logs didn't look like the one on the right. This is about as bad as they get. Here's the well detail down to 30 feet and samples, log, soil description, blank. And this is some challenge that we have with some of these. This is on a well at 408 Kenyatta Street here in town. The one on the left is a bit better. It was actually hand augered by Ojai Valley Imports. They didn't do the hand augering, it was a drilling outfit, but right at 996 East Ojai Avenue. And they actually identified this GC, or clay gravel, brown and wet. There's the symbol indicating the water system, or the first point at which they encountered the groundwater within that little gravel stratum. And that's all they showed and identified in the upper 13 feet at least that may represent the perch system there. All right, so going back to basics, and here's this 2005 cross section. So what we're doing now is putting together, recorrelating the logs we have, adding to it the new logs we have, the better ones, and identifying where that perch system is. The ultimate cross sections will look a bit more like this, but to the same scale as presented previously in the GSP. All right, that's it. Now you can all tell all your friends and family about E-logs and the Schlumberger brothers, and wow them with your knowledge of resistivity. Any questions?
Any questions?
Anybody still awake?
I'm still awake. I was looking for the other graph. Where does the brackish zone start? We drilled, Hunsinger drilled at 700. Golden State replaced Mutual Well 6 and hit it at 700 off a Grand. Soul Park went ahead and put one in for the golf course and hit brackish at 700. And they're not that much difference in elevation.
Right.
They're probably not 25 feet different in elevation. And so how much depth have we got there, and what have we got there? 4,000 acre feet, 5,000 acre feet in that zone?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the rule of thumb that we're kind of operating with is that of the 80,000 acre feet in the basin, you have about 10% of that that's within the perch system, and about 10% that's in that deeper brackish system. And it's not laterally extensive throughout the basin. There are many places where you have very fresh water right on top of the bedrock, but if you look at this particular graph, it's that deeper part of the bowl that tends to have accumulated the most water. That is the oldest water in the deepest part of the zone, typically deeper than 500 feet, up to as deep as 900 feet throughout that zone, depending on the elevation of each particular well. And you know, over time, if that were extracted, it could be replaced with fresher water. So that is something that, you know, that could be identified at some point in the future as a resource if it were treated.
I'd certainly like us to explore that because that's a lot of water. When we say brackish, which is, are we talking about sulfides? What are we talking about? Why are we calling it brackish?
Yes.
I mean, we go to Oxnard, it's saline. Here it's brackish. What's
Right. So it depends on brackish refers to, technically, I think it's 2,000 parts per million or greater that is brackish water. Drinking water targets are 500 parts per million, total dissolved solids. 1,000 parts per million is also serviceable. When you're up around 1,500, then that's the limit at which the county would allow you to get a permit with that water quality source from a well. Above 1,500, it still is usable for some folks who don't need to get that particular permit or can apply it to certain tolerant plants, but 2,000 parts per million is above which is what is we call brackish. Now, the character of the water that would be saline is salt,
right?
sodium chloride, like you'd have in Oxnard, for example. Here, the character is a little bit different. The older waters tend to be a sodium sulfate character or magnesium sulfate character. Fresher waters tend to have a calcium and bicarbonate character. So the shallower we get in the stratigraphy, the fresher the water becomes, and the more calcium and bicarbonate are present. And as you go deeper in the system, the character has that sodium sulfate character.
Do we have, I mean, you go up to the top of the hill and you've got petroleum, you've got tar fields just pouring out of the side of the road cut. Do we have any type of petroleum that's ever invaded in this aquifer or no? Or is it on the other side of the grade towards Santa Paula only?
There are places within the OBGMA jurisdiction where wells have encountered tar. Most of it is south of the Arroyo Prieto Santa Ana Fault, but there are some places where folks have drilled north of that, but really close to the far western side where some oil and gas shows have been encountered. Now, one thing to remember is that oil's less dense than water, it floats. So anytime you would have a full basin prehistorically,
Right.
if there was any tar seeps or gas seeps that found their way into that subsurface, it would find its way out, probably around up to the north and east in the unconfined areas, away from the confined production aquifers as we know them today.
So that that bottom part would have to be actually be pumped and evacuated because it's heavier. You just couldn't, you know, pump it up to the top because it would just flow back down because it's heavy.
Well, if it's slightly heavier, yes, but it could mix if you were to pump it from depth and mix it at some point. That's a pretty intense new Casitas project that Julie can work on when she's not so busy with OBGMA.
I mean, we already have 3 wells got holes poked there, right? We could try it.
For sure. It's a question, I think, of feasibility, cost, treatment versus blending, and how long would it take to be recharged with fresher water.
Thank you.
So, I have a couple of questions. Part is just making sure I understand what Bob's talking about in terms of the idea that we could potentially increase the capacity of drinking water in the groundwater basin by
that basically the concept? Go down to the bottom of the source, pull it out, and that just creates more capacity for it to recharge with rainwater.
Generally and simply put, yes.
And then, my question would be, what would happen? I mean, what would you have to do with that brackish water in term of guessing that, somebody would, be interested in regulating, you just kind of, dumping it in a San Antonio Creek, or what would the, likely method of discharging the brackish water?
Right. If one were to take the path of simply pumping and discharging, you would be required to have a permit through the NPDES system, which is pretty tough to get for just that purpose, especially given the quality of the water being poorer than the ultimate receiving water, which has fresher water. It's coming
Right.
from the purchase system. That's some of the freshest water around. That quality is different. It's very poor from that brackish system, relatively speaking. So it would have to probably be treated, filtered, maybe blended. A very expensive proposition to just put that in the creek. It wouldn't make economic sense.
You'd have to have some type of a treatment plan.
Some type of treatment plan, yeah.
And, I'm guessing, because I've heard that spreading water is not all that effective because of the clay layers, and you wouldn't be able to kind of, disperse it and allow it to filter through, the different layers until it reached our drinking water.
So if you were to pump it and mix it in situ, or within the aquifer system, some type of soil aquifer treatment, SAT as they call it, to get it to the production aquifers, you need to pump it from the deeper central portion of the basin and not send it downstream, but send it upstream toward where the spreading grounds are, or places where creeks naturally infiltrate and recharge the basin, north and east of the limits of the southwest uppermost saturated zone. So getting it up there is where you could have that phenomenon occur. But again, expensive, and rather than require an NPDES permit for discharge to surface water, you would probably need a WDR, I think it's called, a waste discharge requirement permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board that says, yes, you're allowed to do this. Pump groundwater for the purposes of spreading over here. And you'd need space to do that, of course, and you probably need to be aware of the potential salinization of soils with that poor quality water, creating a cementing and a new problem, unintended consequence.
Yeah, my last question is kind of a fairly big tangent from what you presented, but are you being, provided with the materials that the folks that are involved with designing the physical solution, to especially like San Antonio Creek, are you being provided with that material and reviewing it, in terms of how it interplays with our groundwater basin?
I'd say not directly. I'm not given a package of, this is what somebody's thinking as a detail, or this is the information they have to create some solution. Yeah, I see snippets of it from time to time.
I was, fairly deeply involved a couple of years ago in that litigation, and, you seem to be the only one who understood what was happening in terms of, our groundwater basin and the interplay with the, rivers and the perched aquifer, and it kind of scares me to think that, a solution's being designed without, somebody with smarts, watching out for, the long-term health of our basin.
Yeah, I understand we'll have an opportunity to contribute.
Other questions?
I had a follow-up and I lost it, and it had to do with, there was a report that I have generally seen just about every meeting, and for some reason it seems like it's missing, and I can't put my finger on what that report is. It's not the well depth. It certainly isn't the flow out of the valley.
This month I am missing the El Nino and NOAA climatic projections. And, and my goodness, are we?
A coin, you'll come to the same thing.
Yeah.
But then, but exactly. And thank you for bringing that up, Director Daddy. The one thing I wanted to add was, something I heard literally on the radio today, that, this super El Nino we have, water temperature is significantly warmer than they've ever been. It feels like Hawaii when you go surfing out there now, especially with the hurricane swells that are going crazy all over. But I digress. What they mentioned on the radio was that the last time we had a super El Nino like this was 2015 to 16. Does anybody here remember what was happening to groundwater and precipitation in 2015 to 16?
Drought.
Bingo.
So there have been 5 of them. 2 have been extra dry, 2 have been heavy, and 1 was in the middle.
Right.
It's
So-
just the media hyping
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Selling newspapers.
Right. So, selling newspapers or clickbait or what have you, but between general warming conditions and a supposed high anomaly within those warming trends, we're still going to get what we get when it comes to precipitation, and it's outside of our control.
It seems like the jet stream wobbles. Somebody gets a lot of rain.
Sometimes,
But they can,
yeah.
they can predict that it's gonna be us, but it may end up being Oregon or.
Yeah, and it might be us for a month, and it might be us for 2 months, or none. And we'll see. Time will tell.
Okay, thanks, Jordan.
All right, thank you.
All right, next item is a consent agenda, financial report for June and minutes for June meeting. Oh, yeah. Skip public comments. Are there any public comments on items not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to consent agenda.
I'd move.
I second.
Call the roll?
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Yes.
Director Finch?
Yes.
Director Weaver?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. The next item is action item 8A and B. We have 2 public hearings. I'll open the first public hearing at 3:40. And this public hearing is to impose a fine and/or civil penalties to be assessed against the owner of and operator of state well number that ends in the 4 digits P045. And have a staff report on that, Julia?
Yes, so I'm just gonna refer to this as the Wilson well. Kenneth Wilson was the owner, 417 McAndrew Road. You've got the packet there with the history of our communications with Mr. Wilson and what was owed for his well. He became the owner about, a little over a year ago, January of 2025, year and a half, I should say, and have not received statements since then as a new owner. We did reach out to let him know about the responsibilities for reporting extractions and paying the fees. We did get a photo of a meter reading back in May, and that was what I used to calculate the fees for the missing 5 statements. I basically spread that usage over those 5 statements to come up with a total due of $8,382.50, including late charges, the groundwater extraction fee, the GSP fee, and the wellhead fee. This well also has a recordation number, so that is included. We did not get a response from Mr. Wilson until Monday of this week, when I sent him the notice that this was on the agenda. And he responded by sending a check for a partial payment of $5,025. So there's still a balance of $3,357.50. And as far as I know, CC, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't received the most recent statement for 2026-3.
Correct.
That's, so there's still a balance due, there's still I think, well, August 1st is the deadline for receiving the most recent statement, so still has a couple days to get that in. I did reach out by email to ask if he had a time frame of when he was gonna pay the balance due, and I haven't gotten a response, and also when he plans to submit his current statement, and I haven't gotten a response to that either. I do understand that, takes time for new well owners to get used to this process of reporting, and CC and I have both reached out to offer our assistance in, any questions they might have of what is involved in the process, and really haven't gotten a response until we got kind of heavy-handed with this approach. So that's where things stand right now.
Okay, were there any other written or oral communications from anyone regarding this hearing?
No, nobody else.
Is there
Just-
anyone in the public who would like to comment on this hearing, on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and it's open for discussion for the board.
Julia or Cece, I'm not sure who's to answer this. So he sent in a check $3,300 light. Was there any explanation how he came up with the amount he came up to? Is the 5,000 is not close to 8,300? Was it?
Yeah, it was, he indicated that it was for the missing statements from 2025. So it didn't exactly add up the way he did it, but that's what he indicated in the email, that it was for the first 3 statements that were missing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? You, Julie, recommend the adopted resolution?
Well, the resolution has the two parts. There's the $500 fine, the one-time fine of $500, and then the board to consider the daily penalty of $20 to $50 per day for maybe just the missing, maybe on the lower range, because there was a partial payment. In the past, the board has imposed the $50 penalty. So I'm open to the board's.
The what would you start as the start date, since he's paid some portion?
Yeah, we typically go from the compliance deadline, which was June 19th. So from June 19th to today, that's 41 days.
Oh, okay,
That's what we've done.
yeah.
But I'd suggest maybe just going from, just applying that from the compliance deadline for the amount that's unpaid, right? Even though he didn't pay the $5,025 by the original compliance deadline, he has paid
Right.
for that amount. Remains out of compliance with regard to the balance of $3,000 some odd dollars. So that's what I think the board should be looking at in terms of if it were inclined to impose a civil penalty, daily civil penalty, it would be that amount that would be applied to. I think that would be the most, appropriate way to handle it.
A question on that August date. Julia, would you go back and explain to me the accounting dates? You made a statement about first 3 statements, kind of bringing that up, and it didn't add up, and now there's another one. And one is due in August, is that correct? The next statement is coming up in August?
Yeah, let me go.
It's due August.
The,
For this,
It's due tomorrow.
the one that's for this, the quarter that we're in, that ended June 30th, we give people basically a month to turn them in. So the one that was due June 30th should be due by August 1st, basically. So we haven't received that one yet.
that's the third quarter or the second?
It's the third quarter of the way our fiscal years go.
We don't know how much water was.
And we don't
pumped.
know how much that will be because it should have a meter reading associated with it.
This one's kind of different because he did do the partial payment.
It makes it more complicated, for sure.
Andy's a newer owner. It's not like somebody's been here for 25 years not paying.
Right.
Andy has a meter, which is, one of my big bugaboos. I would kind of like to do the unthinkable and maybe give him another 30 days to end this quarter and get caught up and pay the current amount plus a 3,300 he's in arrears,
Right.
and then consider putting a penalty on it. I don't want to dump on somebody right now. He's
He is.
60% in compliance.
He is getting hit with the late fees in this process, just the administrative ones.
Yes.
So I come from a background where, you have a hearing date. And if you got any questions about what is being proposed, you show up for the hearing date. Or you submit something in writing that says what he's advocating for you to do in response to the hearing date. So I'm not totally against what Mr. Daddy suggested, but I also have an inclination towards thinking, we go ahead and level the fine at the lowest daily rate and let him come back to us and tell us why we shouldn't have done that.
In response to that
And
suggestion.
I would support that.
I just
Support yours.
remind the board that there's two aspects, right? There's the one-time fine of $500, which you could levy. There's also the daily penalty that continues to accrue past the due date deadline. So you've got options there if you wanted to pursue one or the other. You don't need to pursue both.
Yeah, and I'm applying, a courthouse standard where it's mostly attorneys who are supposed to know what they're doing, and we are dealing with a resident who happens to own a well, maybe for the first time.
Could we give him a new date that if he doesn't comply, we'll go ahead and enforce this?
We certainly can. I have done that, and I'm certainly willing to do that again. Other owners have not lived up to them, so we can do that in good faith and hope that it works
I
out.
would rather do that than
It's
have to
not.
come back to this. I mean, we can go ahead and approve the fees and the fines, and if they're not paid by another date, this goes through.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So kind of modify the resolution that, if
Why not
it's-
just do the $500 one-time penalty and not the daily in the hopes that he pays it?
Or what if you do the 500 and you determine what the penalty is and suspend it and give him an extra 30 days to get caught up? And if he doesn't do it by that 30 days, then the penalty's already there. Then we don't have to revisit this again. We can just take care of this now.
I think I like that solution. That's kind of where I was going. So the 500 is set, and then if he pays up within some deadline, then he avoids that penalty, that additional penalty, or the daily penalty.
You have a date, Julia, you would be happy with?
August
Tomorrow?
31st?
Pardon me?
August 31st?
I have a motion from someone.
have we settled on what the daily? I would make a motion that we fine $100 a day, the 500 penalty, and $100 a day, and suspend it if he pays, and if he brings it up to,
20 and 50.
I'm sorry?
20, the daily penalty
Is
is
20 and 50?
50.
Well, okay, 50, and if he is current and reports currently and pays current, then no penalty other than the $500, which he's just gonna need to pay anyhow.
By August 31st. Have a second?
Yeah, I second that.
Call the roll?
All right, just to be clear on the motion, we're talking about the balance due, correct? The amount that he hasn't paid and didn't pay by the deadline hasn't, right? That's what the
Yes.
daily penalty applies to.
But we're
Doesn't
also-
he have a current reporting that is also gonna be due with the money in the rears?
Yes.
And so he would need, and my motion would be, he would need to bring everything.
I think that's gonna have to be separate.
Okay.
Because it hasn't accrued yet.
Yeah.
And we, the noticing and due process requires that we, follow the process.
Okay, noted. So would you restate the correct motion for me?
As I understand it, we've got a one-time penalty of $500 that would be imposed, and then a $50 per day penalty imposed on the amount, the balance that was due on, I believe, June 19th of this year and remains outstanding today.
But it's waived if he pays it on time. That daily penalty is waived if he pays it on time.
By the 31st of
August
August.
31st.
By
Does
August
that go
31st.
back retro to June
That was gonna be
19th
my
on that
next-
$50 a day fine? Does that go back to the June 19th
That was gonna be my
day?
next question, or from today, or from the day we got the check.
See, but Peter, you made a point on the balance due, but it's not like we're calculating a percentage, so I don't see where that's just a fine. That's just a daily fine. He owes the balance due, and this is just a fine, is my understanding.
Which to me is, it's more important to determine from what date.
Right.
And
That
I think
goes.
Peter's clarifying that we're not penalizing him for the money that he's paid.
That's right.
No,
We're
that's
specifying-
a given.
We're specifying that it's the unpaid amount, because otherwise we're,
And should that be to June 19th, which was the due date?
Yes, from June 19th.
Okay, just as long as we're clear with all the specificity, that's fine.
Before the vote, can I ask one more question? Last time we did this, I don't think we went at the 50, haven't we done 2 at the 25 level or something, or what was the level?
I think they were both at the 50.
Okay.
But the board did, I don't know if you recall, did rescind one of them.
Right.
When they provided more
Right.
evidence.
Right,
I think it can be as high as 1,000 a day.
It can be, that's what the ordinance,
Generous.
right.
can be as high as 1,000 a day.
Okay, is that the motion?
Do we have a clear motion?
I think it's clear in my mind.
Okay,
Okay, well, and we have a second, and we're waiting?
call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
yes?
Director Finch?
Yes.
Director Weaver?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. Okay, action item 8B is another public hearing.
Boy, this is gonna be a bit.
I'll open this public hearing at 3:55 to consider imposing a fine and/or civil penalty to be assessed against the owner and operator of state well number ending in last 4 digits B025 and B070S and B09S. Staff report?
What was your first well number?
It's S, I
Okay,
said 5.
okay.
All right, so,
Eyes are-
yeah, this one is also an interesting one. We believe that there could be 3 wells on the property. And you can see this, the accounting for this is a lot more than the previous one, because there hasn't been a lot paid over time since 2010. So if you look at the spreadsheets, I created one for the well that is actively used based on just the minimum amount of 0.5 acre-feet per quarter. And then the other two wells, one of which we know of is there, and another one which apparently is questionable whether it's there or not. Those were also based on 0.5 acre-feet. The way they're different is one well has a recordation fee and the other two don't. So that's why there's two sets of spreadsheets. After sending the board agenda to Mr. Lutenberger, he responded back with photos of the wells on yesterday. One showing, I can send these around, one showing definitely an active well with a meter on it. The second one is kind of just a hole in the ground that he said does not have power to it and is not used. So they're aware that it's there, but it's not being used.
Is that compliant with health department safety standards? Just not used?
It doesn't look like it to me.
Okay.
Based
And-
on what he indicated, it wouldn't be compliant with the county standards. But
And therefore, it would have to be closed per health department rules?
would have to be abandoned unless he gets an exception to the abandonment requirement.
Or activates it.
Or
8 hours
activates
per
it.
year.
Yeah, or runs it
There
for
you
8
go.
hours a year. And then the third one is I'm gonna call it the mystery well. The county lists it as a well in their records, but he is not sure that it exists on his property. The only potential he can see is this setup that they, looks like what did you call it? A derrick or of some kind. And he said he is willing to have his contractor dig that out a little bit and see if there actually is a well there. So that's the only communication I've had since sending out the board agenda to him on Monday. He has not indicated whether he's going to pay anything. Has not given an indication of bringing the account current, anything like that. So, other than doing some investigation for that other well, that's really all that has been offered by the owner.
Okay. Do you have any other communications, written or otherwise?
No.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this item?
Julie, I do think that he communicated you about the hearing today and said that he wasn't gonna
Was
be
able
able
to
to
attend.
make the hearing because
Okay.
of his work.
All right.
Right, thank you.
All right, hearing nothing, no other comments, I'll close the public hearing and open for board discussion.
I have a question for council. This person's a client of mine. Do I have a conflict on this issue?
You gotta talk to your own lawyer. No, I'm sorry.
You are my own lawyer. Can I just ask some questions?
How do you feel about it? Yeah, I mean, do you feel like
Well,
you have a
I'm
conflict?
staggered. I'm taking a look in the fact that, this is 15 and a half years with non-compliance. That's what I'm looking at. That's,
If you're concerned about conflict of interest, I would recommend that you abstain from the discussion and a vote.
that I do abstain?
That you would, unless
Okay.
you feel like you're gonna,
Can
feel
I,
like you're gonna jeopardize your relationship with him.
well, can I ask questions is what my real question to you is. Can I go ahead and ask questions about the facts? That's what I'm concerned with.
We can,
Not
but
how
at
I'm
that
gonna
point now
vote.
you're participating in the
Okay.
discussion, so.
I'm gonna abstain for
How far do
this
you wanna wade into that?
I did want to also mention, this looks like it's a horse property, not an agricultural,
Right.
growing kind of property. It does not have a casitas meter. on it, so I believe the well is the only source of water on the property.
And horses can drink a lot.
And horses can drink a lot, especially right now.
So I guess my question would be, because this is the first time, since there's 2 wells, even if you just say there's 2 wells, and the 3rd well is work for Jordan under another hat of the hydrologist proving that it's not there, which I've talked to Jordan on that subject before also. Do you treat it as 1 or 2?
Each well has its own well number. It's 2 wells, and
Yeah.
there are people who have 2 wells on their property, a main well and a standby well, and they pay for the extractions from the main well, and they pay the minimum for the standby well.
No, that I get, but
Okay.
are you looking at 20
Oh, you're
20 to 50
Per
once
well?
or twice? Yeah. That's my question, because we've never faced this before.
We have not, but they are delinquent on both of them.
Yeah, I'm listening to this.
And it seems like he'd have an interest in retiring the well that is not operational. He's required to by law, and if we could give him a period of time to retire it and avoid the whole thing for that well, and then deal with the one that, well, I guess there's
Yeah,
two-
I would be willing,
There's actually 3 wells. There's
yeah,
two
but
that seem-
probably you're gonna prove one.
So one looks like it was destroyed.
Oh, you have a record?
Per permit number 6649 in 2007. 7B7 at 791 Boardman Road appears to, it has a well completion report showing destroyed. I'll forward that to you.
That's new information.
Yeah.
So do you think that's the Derrick?
That could be the Derrick well, but it was shown to be perforated. It was 120-foot deep boring.
Does it have a number assigned to it that we can correspond with one of the 3 numbers that we have?
It's 4 north, 22 west, 07B07S.
07, okay.
All right, so that's one that we've identified. So now we know that we're dealing with 2 wells only.
One operative and one that's not.
I think that's right, yeah.
You know, it's gonna be tough to just get the first. I'd move the same thing probably just once, even though there are just the 500 and the 50 a day.
Well, and the way that the draft resolution was set up was, this is all one violation,
Right.
right? We're not
Right.
tacking on multiple violations.
You're not you're not on a violation per well. You're on a violation per property with 3 wells.
Well, the resolution does say per well. Which we can adjust.
Question, Mike, I mean, this
Well, we
dates
can-
back so far. Is this, his first notice? I mean,
They got a notice back in May. We've had multiple court letters with them. They're all in the packet.
but it's like 22 years later.
And this is a lot of catch-up that we're doing. This is one of the tasks that, again, it takes time to go through all of these and flag the ones that are really delinquent, or the ones that are maybe larger properties that we know are extracting more. It is a lot to go back in time to do, and that's.
And he's been,
going through all these.
we've been sending them that long.
They've been sending statements, and he's
22
not.
years.
Yes.
It was-
Been sending, yes, been sending statements to that mailing address and not getting a response for that long.
Or having them returned.
How long has he owned the property, though?
Oh, all that time, yeah. I wanna say since 2001 is what
I
I
think you
saw,
said 2000.
2004.
Well, I would consider just levying the fines and the penalties and the back charges on the operating well, and the $500 fine on the non-operating well with the caveat that if
he complies with state or county requirements to either pump 80 gallons or whatever it is a year to keep it active or have it
Yeah, it's
destroyed.
got electricity.
That's where I was going with this. I
Okay.
agree with that approach.
And you know, understanding if he has it destroyed, he won't have to pay these things anymore, so. All right, so that, just talking about the non-operating well at this point, $500 fine, one-time fine, waived if he cures let's just call it the defect with the county ordinance, which means he either gets it active, right, or has it destroyed, or gets a permit accepting him from okay. But complies with the county ordinance in one fashion or another. If he does that by a certain time frame, in a certain time frame, it's waived? Yeah, that's what I would suggest. Okay. Just for that one well, the
And
other
I-
well, yeah.
Yeah.
90 days?
I was gonna say 90, it'll probably take that long to get through the
Yeah.
county process.
So 90 days might be difficult for him to fully comply, but if he, let's just say, shows, you know, filing of an application, he's
He can-
pursuing a process, then
Yeah.
we'll waive it. But impose the full penalty and fines and back due on the operative well. I'm sorry, I missed that.
The 500 and the 50
Is still
On the
applicable for the
operative
active
well.
well.
on the operative well.
Okay.
Any more discussion? We have a motion on that.
I second it.
Okay, call the roll.
Oh, who did the motion? Oh, Jim did? Director Daddy?
Abstain?
Director Whitman?
Yes?
Director Finch?
Yes.
Director Weaver?
Yes.
Chair Hayes?
Yes. All right, we'll need to bring back some revised resolutions for your review and signature. Okay. All right, discussion items, legislative ad hoc committee, any action on that?
Not on the committee, but the Small GSA Coalition met, I should have my notes ready. The Prop 4 money for small GSAs. There's been a lot of discussions with DWR on how to administer that. It looks like rather than DWR dealing with 30 different small GSAs, they want to have one entity sort of be the grantee and then administer it to all the small GSAs, and a few other ones have stepped up to take that role. I did not. So I think maybe by the end of the year, all of that will be in place, and we'll be able to get a chunk of that Prop 4 money to go back and help pay for the 5-year periodic evaluation.
Great.
It could be, $150,000
Yeah.
to help pay for. So that effort and belonging to that group and having them advocate for us in Sacramento has gone a long way.
Oh, great. All right, thank you. Meter compliance, I think we did that, didn't we?
We did that. There will be more to come.
Hopefully not too many more, but. All right, is there any other business?
To that point,
Mhm.
is there some way that we can kind of, it's not a story, get the word out there, a little bit of a story? I mean, I'm not trying to make a point out of it, but to get people to realize they need to do it.
You want to borrow
Well, that's,
We got a brand new reporter, he doesn't have.
that's the question, on one hand, you kind of do, and on one hand, you don't want to look like heavy-handed, but.
If somebody wanted to write a summary of, what we're doing, you can post it on the city site. That doesn't necessarily pick up unincorporated people, but, we're trying to
We sent out a mailer to all of the pumpers, thanking them for complying, telling them that we have actively tried to get 100% compliance, and we,
I can draft something
That's
up.
actually not a bad.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't name the,
No, no.
the
Now,
parties.
under
that-
pictures.
No, but just, and even at, cause you're 60 days now until your next mailer goes out.
Yeah.
I would just wait the 60 days and include it in
Include,
that.
that's what exactly what I was gonna suggest. I can draft something up and have you look at either the
Yeah,
committee, the meter compliance committee, or bring it back to the board and
yeah.
have you guys wordsmith it.
Just say, yeah, just to Richard's point, saying thanks, and, we are pursuing those that don't pay and have been
Yeah.
successful.
We do try to put something, if you notice on the statements, there's a little box at the top where we can, put a little something. There's not a lot of room, but we can put, we can add to that with a separate mailer on the next statement.
Okay.
Julia, when do you think you will be separating from this?
I feel like it's gonna be a gradual.
Very gradual.
Transition, so I'll ramp down while the next person's ramping up, so there'll be some overlap. My goal was to have it by the end of the fiscal year, by the end of September. That might be ambitious, so it'll, in the fall. How about that?
Okay, if there's no other business, we are adjourned at 4:11.
Do you want these?